Earthlings, welcome to the
Hello.
Right Show on a
Hello,
Wednesday.
everyone. Unusual.
Wednesday, yes, very unusual.
On a
Well,
Wednesday.
that's a
yeah.
novelty.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, we've had
It's
a few weird things going on. In fact, we seem to have lost the Facebook page, Wendy. Yeah.
We seem to have, well, it's been suspended, let's say, because they keep telling us that we're impersonating. We're breaching some kind of standards of impersonation. I don't know what that is all about, but it won't let me sort it out at the minute. So, we're without our Facebook page at the minute.
So it's saying essentially then that we're repeatedly violating their standards, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because it happened, the first time it happened, I challenged it and then they reinstated the page and obviously decided it wasn't, they weren't right and the challenge stood. And then it happened again really shortly after that. And then now it just seems to be the whole page. They say we no longer recommend your page. People can find it, but we're not going to recommend it. And I can't do an event. I can't post anything, it seems. So yeah, not sure.
Yeah, what a mess. Okay. Right, trying to get my things in order. Just to remind people, the best way to watch all this is on the YouTube channel. It is going out to a couple of Facebook pages. And the usual thing about we don't do super chats or anything like that. So chat away.
We could have been millionaires by now. We're missing a trick there. Can't we?
Yeah. I don't have the confidence to agree with you on that.
Rodney.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, and I wanted to ask everyone in the chat, where did you find about today's show? Was it our post, the posts on our personal pages on Facebook? Was it the TARS page on Instagram? Roger's YouTube? How you got the time and the day?
Good
Right.
question.
Yeah, because I put it out on my Facebook page, and it changed on the Facebook. If you logged onto the Facebook, it said now, kind of 3 days hence, as it were, or 2 days hence.
Michael's saying YouTube. Lorraine's saying YouTube.
Yeah.
Lorraine's also saying that they're always getting bloody messages from TikTok about violations. I think it goes with the territory of being a vegan, an animal rights person, doesn't it? It's getting into some kind of trouble. Troublemaker, Lorraine. Good.
Right, well, this is useful. I've lost the first clip.
Roger told me.
Oh no. Unless it's this one that's just not coming up. I've got one that's not registering.
We have a lot of new items today to discuss with you.
No, it's not that one.
Yeah, we do. If Roger can, Roger's got about 20 computers. And,
yeah, I don't know how to use any of them at the moment.
Pick from each one, which one he's going to show.
Well, let me bring this up anyway, because this obviously is the story of the moment. Really seems to be fairly fast moving as well. So this is the Rigland rescue. I think they succeeded in taking 30, some say 31 beagles out, but 8 were forcibly returned by the cops. Wayne Sean put a video out today, actually, funny enough, saying that he said to one officer who was trying to retake one of the dogs, put that beagle down type of thing, and apparently the officer did, because they were saying this place has been investigated for many years. It's violated lots and lots of rules and regulations and everything, and so therefore, you don't really have the legitimate authority to take them back in. And so now they seem to have a campaign to try to get the 8 taken back in released again.
Okay.
as though their legal status had changed because they were out for a couple of minutes, or something weird like that, right? And so so it's all a bit weird in that sense.
It was heartbreaking watching that.
And
watching that live, and when the cops turned up at one of the vans, and they literally had a beagle in the van, they were about to go, they were going, close the door, go, and then the cops were at the back of the van taking the crate with the beagle out, and it was just like, you just willing it to happen, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's quite weird because there have been some interesting questions about the thing about. We were talking just off air, and I was saying that there were some people asking why there was so many cameras rather than rescuers, and Nella had found out the reason for that, right?
I assume it is because there are people that they want to assist and be part of the rescue, but they cannot risk to get arrested, so they get secondary roles like filming and making sure that everything is caught on, on camera and things like that. So that's the only thing I could think of. And of course, not everyone is in a position to get arrested.
Okay, so it's not that you know for sure. It's just that that's what.
No. I assume.
Yeah. Okay. Right. All right.
I know that because I know some of these open rescues, they're quite very organized. It's not like everyone just turns up randomly. That there's a whole process and structure and organization that goes into it. And back when Animal Rising was still Animal Rebellion, and I was doing some campaigns. Getting involved with campaigns with them, it was a similar thing to what Nella's saying there. You would say whether you were unarrestable or not, and there you'd nominate yourself for different roles or different levels of risk, basically. So you would say,
I remember that, Wendy.
Yeah, do you remember that? So the different levels of risk of where you would put yourself for that action, and therefore, if you don't want if you're going to be holding a dog, obviously that's pretty high risk. Whereas maybe filming isn't so much. So but it's all very well planned in ahead. You can't guarantee it, though, obviously.
Well, apparently, they announced this action 2 months ago, and then they announced a kind of dress rehearsal. But actually, the dress rehearsal was the actual liberation in order to kind of take the cops off guard. But it didn't take long, I don't think. In fact, I've got a clip we can show. Let me see if I can remember how to do this now. Answer is I can't.
Which computer is this, Roger? 25?
No. I don't know what the hell I'm doing at the moment. I was thinking I've got this real sussed out, folks. And then turns out that
you did have it sussed out.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can show this.
Animal rights activists storming a controversial dog breeding facility just outside Madison this morning. The Dane County Sheriff says half of the activists were either detained or arrested.
Some could face criminal charges now, but Fox 6 investigator Brian Paulson just says the self-described rescuers got away with 23 beagles.
Mostly green team.
Animal lovers from across the country came to Madison this weekend to prepare for what they call an open rescue. But on Sunday,
sometimes unexpected things occur.
They learned their planned dress rehearsal was really Act 1.
Rescue teams have just arrived on site at Ridgeland Farms, and we need to go there immediately.
As a trained support squad headed to the commercial dog breeding facility in Blue Mounds, we followed. We weren't the only ones. Shortly after 8 a.m. Sunday, a team of activists led by attorney Wayne Shung penetrated the perimeter of Ridgeland Farms, then tried to force their way inside the breeding barns. After failing to breach multiple doors, they punched their way in through a window, grabbed.
I just want to pause that because in the John Curtin live that I watched yesterday, and we'll come on to the reason for that in a while, but they were saying it's quite interesting that how some of the kind of skills of the movement seem to have diminished, because apparently there's a couple of locksmiths in the chat, and they were saying they should have gone not for the lock on the door, they should have gone for the hinges, because it's easier to get the door off if you do that, which was quite funny. And so it just reminded me of that point when that came up there.
Having dozens of beagles from their cages and attempting to carry them to freedom.
I don't even know what's happening.
The chaotic scene left one transport van disabled, and Dane County Sheriff Calvin Barrett says
that poor dog's blood's on your hands.
They were able to stop 2 others.
Based off of our information at this point, all of those dogs were recovered.
But activists tell Fox 6 they still got 23 Ridgeland Beagles to an undisclosed rescue house. Ridgeland Farm spokesman Jim Newman says that matches the number they count missing.
I would hope that most Wisconsin residents would see something like this and be turned off by the idea of breaking in using sledgehammers, using saws.
Newman says the activists did substantial damage and committed serious crimes.
There are actually doors where there's pry bars still in the doors.
This woman, who would only give a first name of Bridget, came all the way from Maryland.
Have you ever been arrested before?
No.
And says she carried 2 of the dogs out.
How anybody could treat dogs, man's best friend, the way that they are treating these dogs is beyond comprehension for me.
Leaders of the operation say it was a success, but also say their work is not done.
There are still almost 2,000 dogs on site here, and each one of those dogs' lives matter.
Brian Polson, Fox 6 Investigators.
So that's quite interesting stuff, isn't it? So.
Yeah, and of course, this has been going on. There's just been a trial actually a couple of weeks ago where a few activists, including Rose, Wayne's now wife, was also on trial, and the other activists were also on trial for rescuing beagles from MBR Acres. And a jury found them not guilty, which is a brilliant result. And it does make you feel, it goes back to looking at this as if you look at this because a lot of these people get involved, I'm thinking, because of course they're beagles and they're dogs. And I'm wondering if this were rats, mice, guinea pigs, other species of a fellow animal, would the jury have found Rose and her fellow activists not guilty? You know, and would people have so much sympathy? And I think the answer is no. But then I was thinking a lot about this, and I thought, well, just because it wouldn't be the same for rats and mice, and we'll say, well, this is speciesist then, because we're making it like the dogs are. We're kind of cashing in, as it were, or taking advantage of the fact that dogs have got this higher status in society. But I thought, actually, in a way, what's wrong with that? Because we were talking the other day about the three of us were talking about when there's some form of privilege. If you have some form of privilege, you have to use that privilege in order to help others who are being oppressed, or when there's an injustice. And in a way, isn't that a similar thing? In that, you know, activists are using the status that dogs have as pets, you know, companions, and animal lovers love dogs and all that stuff, in order to help the dogs. And going back to what Ronnie says, actually, because Ronnie's rightly saying the rescued beagles will be replaced by other beagles or by animals of other species. And I think that's what will eventually happen. I think if there's enough public outcry about dogs, and it looks like that could, you know, the way the jury found the activists not guilty, there could be a real turning tide of public not tolerating research, testing, experiments on dogs anymore. Those experiments will still be done on other animals. But then I guess in a way, we need to open the door. We need to maybe have the conversation. And if this brings this to public awareness, we've got to make the most of that somehow. We can't just let that be it. We can't just be, oh, well, we're just stopping MBR. We're going to shut MBR down. We're going to stop beagles and dogs being tested. And we have to somehow push the animal testing and as a bigger picture, animal use, and, you know, the scope of all animal use and subjugation, not just use, but subjugation to humans. We have to kind of bring that into the conversation as well at some point where we can. That's how I'd see that as well.
I see Caroline's question, and I don't know if they use that opportunity, but I would say that using such opportunities, it's really critical, because even if these individuals are replaced, at least we have 23 individuals. But then if this
Oh, have we lost Nella? She's frozen.
Yeah, since it's frozen, yeah. I tend to obviously agree with Ronnie. Contractually obliged to do so, but it is really about demand, and then you've got the species problem, you know.
Oh, we lost Nella.
Yeah, so hopefully Nella will come back.
But then does that mean though? So this is true. While this is true, what we're saying about those beagles will be replaced by other animals of other species and other beagles even. But does that mean that we shouldn't be trying to help them, or are you just saying then that okay, forget the open rescue, forget all that, just focus on vegan education? I don't know. I can never speak against those lives that will be changed.
If we can use this kind of event for vegan education, and then that means then that the claims making has got to be very precise and careful. So far, this hasn't been. It's talked a lot about animal welfare campaigners. It's talked a lot about dog lovers and this kind of stuff. And so in that sense, there's a problem. Nelly, you're back. Great.
Oh yes, thankfully.
Yeah,
I was afraid for a minute.
You disappeared. No, we were just saying, Nella, about whether the fact that obviously rescuing some beagles is not, speaking to veganism or ending all subjugation, speciesism, human supremacy. But I guess it's for me, I feel like it's part of it, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to liberate, because those 22 dogs, they're going to have a different life, and that's not to be underestimated. For me, I would never think, well, just leave the dogs in there because we need to just go and do some vegan education. Because if those people are willing to go and put their freedom on the line to get those dogs out, I say, well done, and courage and bravery, and I wouldn't want to,
even if they had rescued only one,
piss on that bonfire, let's say.
But I would love if everyone uses this opportunity to talk about other species that don't get so much solidarity, because this is a conversation we can all have with our friends who comment on this rescue these days and admire the action and the courage of the rescuers, and agree with them, of course. But we can always ask the question: what if these individuals were pigs or sheep or hens, whatever species? Would you feel the same? And if you are not feeling the same, shouldn't you think about that? I mean, the context. Talk about the context of the
Funny
rescue,
enough,
and somehow link it to veganism. Go ahead, Wendy.
No, I was just saying, very similar to what you were saying there. I had a similar conversation with just a client of mine the other day after a class, and we just got chatting about this, and I was telling her about Rose and the Beagles, and then I was telling her about this rescue, and she cares for a dog. And then I started talking about, what about, the rats and all the fishes and all these other fellow animals that are also being tested on. And then I kind of pushed that conversation into veganism and how our fellow animals are used in lots of different ways for all different reasons. And it was a very interesting conversation, and she was really open to it as well, and really sort of nodding along and agreeing. And I think, just sow seeds for people. Doesn't mean they're just going to go vegan overnight, obviously, but it does help. So I think it does give us a catalyst to push conversations if we are willing to do it. And that's the crux, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, the question that raised in my head when I first saw all this was kind of things that we've talked about before in the Animal Rights Show, and I talked with Ronnie on Still Alive about what would the ALF have been like in the internet age, because like I said, there was a lot of focus on footage coming out. Now there's a lot of focus on fundraising, which has always been a bit controversial with DXE. They've always said that they want $2,000 for every chicken rescued and $10,000 for every mammal rescued. But then they're talking about their life's veterinary costs and everything, up to them. So it was interesting, and so this came up by coincidence, which is really quite interesting. So this is Joseph Buddenberg, and reminding us that this was yesterday. So it was the anniversary yesterday of the 1990 raid on Interfauna. Interfauna, I think it might have been called at the time, because it's had about 5 name changes since then. So here we've got an interesting one, because there was 82 beagles taken on this one, and there was also 26 rabbits as well. And one thing that John Curtin mentioned in his live yesterday was the fact that when they were doing this one, he had the job of filming. He said he filmed for about 2 minutes and then got on with actually taking them out and everything. And another thing that worried me a little bit is that obviously a lot of people seeing the brand new Liberation don't know about these things, and there's no reason why they should. But some people are claiming things like, the 22 who were rescued, that's the biggest liberation of beagles ever, and this kind of stuff, and so there is this kind of weird kind of internet competitive element, which is very kind of, it's unneeded really, but it's also very worrying, because it's not a competition. It doesn't matter, because even if they'd have got the full 30 out, it still would have been less than this one, for example, and others that I know about. There's one in Scotland with beagles, and I think there was more than 30 beagles taken, and each and every one was pregnant. So how many individuals in the end were liberated, I'm not quite sure, but so there is that. And then there's also this one, before we move on, I suppose. So this again is from Buddenberg. So this was February. So I think this is this year, which is quite interesting, is it? Because there's not a great deal of emphasis in the movement now, and some of the people who are critical of veganism being the moral baseline are saying that it is taking the limelight off other things which are also worthy. But Ronnie's critique of it in general applies to all of these things, because again, our fellow animals, if they're being used and there's still a demand for them, they will be replaced, or the business will just move abroad or something like that. This is the history of that type of thing, which is a real shame. Right. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move tack, I think, Wendy, are we?
We are indeed. We're going to be looking at a few different campaigns where fellow animals are used in, or let's say symbols and representations of our fellow animals are used in campaigns. And we're going to be joined by someone, hopefully.
Is she, I don't see on the green room.
Any minute now?
Any minute now? Possibly.
I'll have to see if I've let me see what I've got here to announce her. or this one. Oh, that's Donald Trump's one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, we might as well start, and we can just bring her in when she. Yeah. Okay.
When she's ready.
Yeah, when she's ready. So so this is quite a challenging. First set of things. Now, this was brought to our attention because of the pigs initially, and then we got interested in the group.
Yeah. The group is Femen. They're well known. This protest was outside the Louvre in Paris, and I follow them.
A week ago, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was on Women's Day, the 8th of March. So I follow them, and personally, I have no problem with the way they use nudity. No problem at all. I like most of their, of their acts, but I didn't like this particular one, and I find it very, very disturbing. There is a video from that day, and that's why we thought that it would be a good news item to share with you and discuss about it, how you'll feel seeing pigs being used in this derogatory sense.
Yeah, and there's a close tie with that actually, with pigs. Looking back, even it goes right back even into like the 1500s, that people were being called pigs as people who were despised. But then there's also become a nuanced connection to men from as men who are either sexist, lecherous, or disrespectful towards women. And of course, there used to be that phrase, which you don't hear as much now, do you? Male chauvinist pig. But there's often been that connection. And in the 16th century, there were associations, or no, not then, sorry, 19th and 20th century, sorry. Sometimes the phrase was used, men are pigs or men are swine. That emerged in literature at the time to describe men who treated women poorly. So there's this connection goes quite far. Yeah, but very, very disturbing for us, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously got echoes of the Black Lives Matter thing that caused a lot of problems for the movement back in the day. But the only thing that I initially thought of was the fact that, you know, Donald Trump has been very, very rude towards women journalists in particular, and you know, his kind of misogyny is kind of just on show, the same as his racism, really. And he doesn't try and hide it. And, you know, the MAGA people will defend it. But famously, about a month ago, on Air Force One, a woman was asking a question, and he just says, "Quiet, piggy," right? And so I think that may have been the prompt for this. I don't think it excuses it, but I think that may have been the prompt for it.
Yeah, I did want to reach out and ask them where their, you know, what their reasoning for the mask was, but I didn't get a chance. But I will try and do that.
I mean, has anybody questioned it? Do you know?
No, I've tried to find, comments about that, but they were either, cheering on or being critical about nudity. But no one, as far as I know, no one focused on the use of pigs in that way.
Yeah, and these are, well, I don't suppose they are very realistic, are they? But these are masks. They're not. See, the Black Lives Matter, they actually had pigs' faces from the slaughterhouse, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the thing is, these are not just, protesters among other protesters. These are a radical feminist group.
Yeah.
And as a feminist, I think that I have the right to be critical about it, because if radical feminists and militant feminists, even if they are not vegan, which I don't find reasonable, but even if they are not vegan, they cannot see why it's problematic to use our fellow animals in that way. then you have a huge problem. I mean, at least they should be more sensitive about other minorities and other groups, and about the animal rights people. They should be more sensitive towards that.
That just speaks to, that just speaks to human supremacy, doesn't it? Because even in other progressive groups, radical groups who are fighting injustice in other ways, there's still often that divide of human versus fellow animals, and it's it is that human supremacy. It's almost like, well, you know, we're fighting for this cause, but this is really important. But within the human context, there's still that separation, which I think there's still a lot of work to do for vegan feminism and anti-speciesism generally. But
I agree with this. Of course, it doesn't quite fit the fact that they've got, you know, I'm Jeffrey Epstein, I've got, you know, Harvey Weinstein, you know, that kind of stuff, and so there is that. But I mean, if they wore Trump masks, it would have been a lot better from our point of view. So what do you think needs to happen that women in our movement call them out? I'm not quite sure that they're going to take anything from men.
I think there has to be, I think there has to be conversation from other feminists. Yeah, definitely.
Because they should be called out for this, right? And say, well, you know, we're quite supportive of you and all the rest of it. Now, there's a trigger warning for the very last shot, folks. So, which is this. Normally, they don't use masks. So there's lots and lots on their Instagram. There's hundreds and hundreds of pictures. But they do get sexually assaulted quite often when they're doing their things. And I was kind of pretty shocked by that. And also they seem to think, well, look, you know, we're in a patriarchal society, kind of what do we expect kind of thing. But it is pretty disturbing. So I'm not going to leave that. I'm not going to leave that on the screen.
And most of the time, their protests are great, and they really put their bodies on the line. And otherwise they are a great group. But and sometimes they do protests in countries where they can get easily arrested, even jailed. And I admire and respect that. But I was very disturbed with the whole big thing.
Well, what I think we could probably do is try to encourage all the women on the panel, that's you two, and in the chat to try and contact them. We'll maybe try and revisit this and see whether they're responsive to it or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is quite interesting. But,
and of course it does speak to the use of fellow animals as a dehumanizing tool, which, you know, lots of humans use against other groups of humans in order to make it easier to justify, you know, discrimination and violence, whether it's, you know, rats, cockroaches, and they're often used, vermin, cockroaches and rats often used, aren't they, in hate speech and genocide propaganda and things like that. And you know, you get all sorts of different things, different species that are used in different ways to mean different things. And it's funny, isn't it, how we get these ideas of who fellow animals are, and then create these almost like caricatures about them, and then project them onto human behavior, and then create these pejorative insults and dehumanizing. It's just, it's quite bizarre and quite common.
I think at first, well, for me anyway, at first glance, I thought it was a PETA protest until I realized
because of the topless.
Yeah, because of that bit. Yeah. Speaking of which, do you want me to bring that picture up? The PETA one?
Oh yes. Okay. Yes, please.
Right. So. Oh, hang on, add to stage. There we go. Okay, so let's do it like that, maybe make it a little.
Now,
bit
you said to this, Roger, when you saw this, you don't get it, and I was just wanting to ask you, In what way don't you get it? I'm just wanting to clarify, what is it that you don't get, as why they would do it, or?
Well, they would do it because they're PETA, but I still don't really see it really. I mean, put yourself into their place, yeah. And so then you've got a lot of food at the front. There is another shot from the front, and so then you've got this guy with his head bounced on some glass or something, and then I don't even know what that kind of plastic thing is supposed to be. Presumably, a turkey.
A turkey.
Yes. The thing is, there is all this literature now about how the imagery of our fellow animals is used, and how when they are not looking, when they do not look real and they resemble cartoons or toys or stuffed animals, people do not connect with them, and that's why they use them on the packages of, flesh and things like that. And I think this works both ways. If an animal who doesn't look real is a good advertising for a ham, package, in the same way, it's not good for a protest, because people are not going to look at this stuffed thing and feel compassion for other animals.
Because they're used to seeing bodies like that. They're used to seeing that. Like I can go to a supermarket, and I remember, and I think I might have told you both this when I was in Tesco's or somewhere, and all of a sudden I went around the corner and they had this biggest freezer just piled high with turkeys' bodies, and I couldn't stop myself choking. I just sobbed. I was walking around the supermarket just sobbing, trying to pull myself together, but it just really got me. But I thought, most people here are just walking around looking at that like it's the most normal thing in the world, and would wonder what's wrong with her. But and some people are used to seeing that, so in a way that it might not even register. Like, obviously they're trying to foster empathy for this individual, but they don't even see that as an individual, I don't think. So yeah, it's kind of strange. Good point from Caroline.
Yeah, absolutely, Caroline.
Yeah, it's all very, very weird to me. And excuse my kind of ignorance, but are the turkeys male turkeys then?
I don't know. I don't see why they should be only male turkeys.
I don't know whether they'd be one or the other, to be honest.
Well, I'm just wondering that's why they've put the guy.
Why they've put a man there.
Because normally PETA obviously use slim women, usually, don't they?
Okay, but then they may have heard the critique, so they decided to use a guy this time. But
Right. maybe somebody in the chat will know that particular detail. But, yeah, it just seems, because it almost seems a bit grotesque, and so therefore it's one of those things where do people look at a display like that and think about veganism, or no. the vegan part of it is not there, is it?
No. And I have a confession to make. I've looked at this picture a lot of times since you shared it in our chat, and just now realized that this is a man. I thought
really?
Hence my critique on the stuffed animals and and the use of imagery. I just realized it looked like a fake bunny to me.
You didn't realize it was a man. Oh, that wouldn't have made sense then for you. And here's our little
hello, Deb.
Hey, Deb.
I
made it.
I finally got it to work. Oh my goodness.
Welcome. Hello. How are you doing? So what were you thinking? Did you manage to hear some of all of that, Deb, while you were trying to get in, or?
I heard you while I was playing with my phone here, so I heard everything. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to all of that we were saying about the
you guys have covered everything, and I have mixed emotions about it too. Because single issue, they're very troubling, but I try to see them as bridges to a wider conversation too. And like Ronnie said, but we have to always underpin this with the vegan. So when I do dog things, I talk to people about veganism all the time. When we go to lunch after a protest or whatever, I say, let's go to the vegan place. And then I talk to them about, there's some people that are still good with eating dogs and cats too. So it's just, it's an opportunity. Is it ideal? No, definitely not. And there's a long way to go, but I think anything that we can do that puts all non-human animals or other animals in a positive light and get them out of the position they're in, I think is good. It's just, that's my opinion on it anyway.
Did you hear the stuff about the pig masks? And you might have missed all of that because you were trying to get in, I think.
I got caught bits and pieces of it, and I call out people all the time when they say, oh, you're being hoggish, or well, that's pretty chicken of you to do that. I go, hey, have you ever know? I know chickens personally, and they are not cowards by any stretch of the imagination. Those are slurs. And I've rescued rats, and until you know them individually, you have no idea that they have personalities. So I try to wedge that in all the time without getting people's backs up right away, because I think depending on your audience, your approach has to be different too.
What do you make of Ronnie's point? Because I mean, I agree with it in general terms. I was just thinking that it was a question of trying to reach out initially to this particular group in order to get them to respond without, telling us to F off, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think that you need. I don't think you need to be female or identifying as female in order to be critical of their actions. One does not need to be a misogynist, because there is, a risk that misogynist vegans can use the opportunity to attack them. So the whole communication will be probably problematic, and the point will be lost.
Yeah, but you might find from a feminist group though that they wouldn't hear it. Like, I think you might have mentioned this, they wouldn't hear it from a man as much. They wouldn't be like, oh, here comes a man telling us what to do again,
probably,
kind of thing. I think that can be the issue with that. So it doesn't mean you can't be critical of it. It's just whether approaching them about the situation would land well. Would they hear that message, from a man as much? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right. So we've got one more thing, I think, on the Bodiment section. Wendy, do you want to define Bodiment, or do we not need to?
Well, Bodiment. So it's quite an ancient word. It's not really used that much now, but it could be substituted for embodiment. But I'm using it in the way that it's representing something that's abstract in a tangible form. So like the turkey or the pig mask representing something about what people think pigs are to be insulting to humans, kind of thing. But in this next example, it's used in a more positive way, because there's here in the UK, there's talk of replacing historical figures on banknotes with pictures of our fellow animals, free living animals, wildlife, let's say. People will refer, here we go, wildlife to replace historical figures. So this is obviously in a way positive, because
controversial though, isn't it?
But controversial, yeah. A lot of people, there's pushback on it, but I think a lot of people are quite open to it. But then there's going to be a short list of who will be put on the banknotes, and they've said definitely not like animal companions like dogs and cats and people like that. So it's going to be definitely wildlife. So, but then it also got me thinking, I feel sometimes this can be also at the other side of where we use fellow animals and they're like, we'll use them as symbols to represent something maybe derogatory or negative, like with the pig masks, or with pejorative slurs and all that kind of stuff. This almost to me can come to the other end, or the other end of that spectrum, where I think sometimes we can represent fellow animals almost symbolically, but to the point where we don't see them as real individuals with real lives, personalities, experiences, and real place in the world. It's almost like we romanticize them a little bit. So where there's talk about putting pigeons, there's someone's got a petition up for trying to get pigeons as one of the animals on there. There we go, lovely. Which I think will be a really good thing. I don't think it's a negative thing as such, but I also think that there's that side of it where it's romanticizing pigeons as because they were war heroes or something like that. They're in the British psyche as a real part of British culture, and I just wonder whether. I think it could be, again, it's going back to what we were saying about the whole beagle thing and the vivisection and speciesism generally. It's like if we can use this for more positive messaging, but actually to say, look, yeah, these are individuals, and actually they were used in the war. But that's not necessarily a good thing. They didn't choose to be used in the war. They just are used. So they're not war heroes as such in the same way as you might be thinking. They were exploited and used, and they're oppressed. And now there's so much going on with pigeons out and about whether they should be being given food and all this. But just to say, going back to that whole romanticizing, and again, it brings me back to this image that stays with me of the rat bronze statue outside the Russian Scientific Institute. I think it's to do with genetics. And there's a bronze statue to represent the service to humanity of rats and mice. Within like the vivisection industry, and they very much anthropomorphize this character. They're knitting the strip of DNA, which they're saying is like representing that connection of the human and the animal that's like served humanity. But again, it's that romanticization of like, oh, the heroes, the mice, the rats, they've really helped humanity, they've served it. And it's like, that's not the reality. That is not the reality at all. They've been bred, they've been used, they've been violated, there's been violence, they've been tortured and oppressed. And, so I just think that can be a risk when we use symbols of fellow animals. That's my point. Not to say that this is a negative thing as such, but.
You know what, Wendy, I agree.
My first thought, was get the gelatine out of the... I mean, it seems a bit weird, to kind of have our fellow animals on the thing, but there's gelatin in them, isn't there, in the thing? Sorry, I cut across you there, Deb.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Like with the dogs, I don't think we should be breeding any more animals. Yes, dogs are great. I love them, but I hope someday that they go back to that they're not domesticated anymore. So we shouldn't look on our other animals as what good they are to us or what they're like, how much they're like us. Let's let them be themselves, and that can't happen in captivity. That's my opinion.
Yeah, agreed, Deb. Definitely no more breeding. No more breeding for human gain at all.
Have you got a view on this, Noah?
I was thinking that if this is going to happen and symbols are going from free living animals are going to be used anyway, I would prefer to see on the banknotes at least those species that are categorized as pests, and in order to redeem them in a way, quotation marks, and make them more safe from the people that are turning against them and poisoning them or harassing them in any way.
Indeed, and nobody will be surprised because we're going to have to move on in a second, but it's Nigel Farage who is speaking out against this thing. But I think he's mainly complaining about the fact that people like Churchill stuff. I mean, obviously Farage and Trump have got something about Churchill, You know, all that, the jibe against, you know, Starmer and that, you know, so.
And I wonder why Farage, or whatever his name is you say Farage, I say Farage,
Well,
potato,
garage,
potato.
Garage, you say
A garage, like a garage, yeah, that's it. I wonder why he thinks it's PC. What's PC about putting fellow animals on banknotes? I think, and what it also speaks to as well is how people have, again, this romanticized vision of wildlife, and and often you hear that phrase, they say our wildlife, our badgers, our foxes, and things like that. So people have this sense of like really almost like they are part of the collective, until of course they do too well, and then they get in the way and they, you know, rip your bins open and shit all over your car and whatever, and then it's like, oh, the vermin. So it's just interesting to see how people might welcome so-called wildlife onto the notes, but they probably wouldn't welcome a pig, for example.
Rats with wings, but yeah, it is. Yeah. It's kind of weird, isn't it? So
yeah.
Okay, so let me remove that. Now we've got a little nice interlude now, which is about I think it's about 2 minutes long. So I thought you'd like this, folks. I've edited it down. It's one of those dodo things, and so I saw this and I thought, well, because some of the things are a bit heavy today, we'll go something like this.
He is getting evacuated right now because of the flooding. I brought shop.
Driveway. Oh, dude.
We're almost there. The house is right here. Hey, there's the mama. Mama. Where's your babies? Where's your babies, mama?
I can't believe they left this dog on the balcony like this.
They're in here. Mama, where's your babies?
They're so scared.
It's okay, babies. Look at your babies. Look at your babies, mama. We're gonna get you guys out of here, okay? Okay, we got the pups. Here they are. Shy's gonna walk with the puppies. I'm gonna carry the mom. Truck all the way over there. Oh, this is a workout. Arms are burning. But we got them.
That was a pretty awesome feeling once we got back to the car and they're all safe and warm.
You like a warm truck, eh? Hey, where's your pups? Hey, babies. Hey. Mama, you're all warm in the truck? Got your pups? I swear, I probably got hypothermia. Oh my gosh.
Let's go, man. We did
it. You guys got the good life now. Let's go.
You guys are hungry, eh?
So I know those films are a little bit contrived, and you kind of wonder about them because, you know, who's filming it all and all that, and the different angles, and so a lot goes into it. So I am a bit skeptical about them, but of course they are very kind of heartwarming as well in the way, aren't they? So I just thought it might be nice to put that in there as a bit of light relief.
Yeah, and it's funny how they'll be seen as the heroes, which obviously we all want to see the dogs getting saved, and yet when the rescuers are taking the Beagles from that facility, it's seen as theft, and it's a criminal offence. So it just goes to show you how wild our perspectives are on things. The rules we just make it up as we go along, really, and it's just mostly a load of old shit.
Your favourite word today. So, well, Deb, we've lost you on the visual, and we have to say goodbye to you anyway. But thank you very much for taking part. Sorry about your technical difficulties, but.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the invitation, and you're listening to my rambling on. And I said I love dogs, Roger. I meant that. I didn't. I meant that in a family affectionate way.
You're a dog lover. You're a dog lover, Deb.
Deb has a wonderful family with a multi-species family. She's definitely that's great.
She definitely does.
Right. Okay. So thanks, Deb, and we'll see you again.
Sounds
right. So moving on. So it's the war thing now, right? Yeah.
Well,
okay.
what is it good for?
Yeah, absolutely nothing. So
Absolutely
here's
nothing.
somebody that everybody's going to know.
My name is Ronnie Lee. War is horrific for humans. It's estimated that as many as 250,000 human beings were killed last year as a result of war. But what needs to be realized is the situation is even worse for our fellow animals. These are wars that are carried out between humans because humans can't get along, because of the foolishness of humans in embarking in warfare against one another. And yet the main victims of those wars, however horrific they are for humans themselves, the main victims are our fellow animals. For instance, some research was done into the Gulf War. It was estimated that 50,000 humans were killed as a result of that war. The number of animals killed was at least 1 million. And that situation is repeating itself all over the world today where war takes place, and it's mainly because of use of high explosives. For instance, in Gaza, the human death toll is horrendous, but the death toll of our fellow animals is even higher, far higher. Because when we consider that other animals live all around us, not just animals we have in our homes, like dogs and cats, and then there's animals on farms, but there's also all the animals that live in the wild, the birds and the small mammals and other creatures that perish because humans wish to go to war and because humans use high explosives in the course of that warfare. So we need to do everything to prevent war, everything to oppose war, everything we can to oppose the arms trade, for instance, not just for humans, but also for our fellow animals.
Indeed. And so
thank you, Ronnie.
That video has been getting quite a lot of coverage on the internet, which is quite good. And I'm pleased to say that we have the man himself.
Hello, Ronnie.
Hi. Hiya.
General Lee.
Ronnie,
You think
I
was going to say,
I
thought I'd be promoted from general by now. I've been general for so many years.
What do you want to be now? What's
I
it?
should be
Commander?
Field Marshal really by now.
Oh, Field Marshal. Okay.
There we are.
Yeah,
Ronnie,
definitely a very militaristic term as well. Someone who's so against war, isn't it? Quite funny, quite ironic.
Well,
I wonder in the numbers you mentioned in the video. Obviously, the victims of the huge ecological catastrophe are not counted. All those animals that we suffer and die because of water pollution or air pollution that are not directly killed by bombs or other weapons, but are dying because of loss of habitat due to wars. So imagine the total number of non-human victims is even higher.
It would be even higher. And also, warfare these days is a huge contributor to the climate crisis because the emissions, created by the bombs and the fires and all of these things, and huge pollution of the seas, surrounding these areas as well. That I think, a major one of the reasons why the casualties of our fellow animals in the Gulf War was so high was because of pollution of the ocean, pollution of the sea was caused by that, and the sea animals that died.
I've been doing a little bit of, it's quite weird really, because I'm not the kind of person who takes any notice of kind of war machinery, but I know some people really like to do that, and I think it's safe to say it's probably men, looking at missiles and all that. But the technology at the moment, Ronnie, which you kind of alluded to there, has really gone up, in leaps and bounds. For example, there's these things called the bunker busters, right, which actually burrow into the ground and then explode. You've got Iran now. They've got these new, they're called hypersonic missiles, that when they get near their targets, they split into 8 other missiles. And this is deliberately designed to get through the Israeli so-called Iron Dome and this kind of stuff. But again, in terms of our fellow animals, it's getting worse and worse. And there's absolutely no concern taken when warfare machinery is developing in order to kill each other better than before. And at the same time, even more of our fellow, the ones who might have been relatively safe deep underground are no longer safe.
No,
that's right. I mean, it's terrible enough for civilians. I mean, civilian casualties of wars these days, horrendous because of the use of high explosives. I mean, one day, hundreds of years ago, it was just 2 lots of blokes in the field, like hacking at each other, wasn't it? It didn't involve non-combatants at all. And well, of course, they did start using animals, using horses, and they were very often casualties. But these days, it's human casualties are mainly civilians in warfare.
Yeah, and of course, like you were just saying there, Roger, there's no concern at all. So even when warmongers are basically strategizing about their targets, they might obviously it's not always successful, but they might try to avoid civilian targets or infrastructure and all of that stuff. But there's never any concern about our fellow animals. There's never going to be any consideration of them and where they are and how they're living and how it's going to affect them. So they're totally invisible in war, aren't they?
Absolutely. And what concerns me is so many people claiming to be vegan who actually support, support these wars, support these attacks, either by one side or the other. And that's very, that is very disturbing. It's totally inconsistent with the principles of veganism.
Yeah, and also, sorry, Roger, go.
No, I was just thinking, there's obviously been those debates in the last few years about which is the most vegan army in the world. Well, there's no vegan armies.
No, there's no vegan army at all. It's just totally, anyone that's at all involved in the using of high explosives, can't claim to be behaving in accordance with vegan principles at all. It doesn't matter if they might be wearing a pair of boots that are made from a non-animal material. They're still responsible for the mass slaughter of, well, not only our fellow animals, but many innocent humans as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. If we regard veganism as the ultimate peace movement, of course, people say, yeah, but having a defense force is different. And I suppose it is. And I suppose given the terrible violence that seems to be, it seems to me in the last few years that, we're getting much more violent as a species, which was one of the very things that prompted the foundation of the movement, funny enough. The fact that, something had gone terribly, terribly wrong with humanity. We'd hit this moral trough, and we just had a global conflict, which ended with the dropping of 2 nuclear bombs. There's now talk about Israel deploying their nukes because Iran has done a hell of a lot better than the States and Israel thought they would in terms of this latest bit of aggression.
I think humans have been violent for a very long time, and then be wars, all down the decades for hundreds and hundreds of years. There's been warfare between humans. It's just that now, through the technology that's been developed, there's the ability to be, for wars to be massively more lethal than they were, and I think that's what's happened.
And also, I was thinking about this earlier. I suppose if violence perpetuates more violence, then the more wars we have, it's like the more wars we're going to have. It's like the cycle never ends, does it? Because then there's going to be retaliation, and then it's going to go through the generations, because the kids that are experiencing war now are going to grow up perhaps with this hatred of the other, and then those seeds are sown, and that's the environment they're growing up in, and we are growing up in a violent society. You only have to look around at what's going on, in the world generally. It just seems to be everywhere, violence in small ways, big ways. And it's like this, it's like it's escalating, and I guess it's that snowball effect perhaps that we're seeing as well.
I think one of the reasons for that is because there's been a failure to educate, and I would say primarily a failure to carry out vegan outreach anywhere near sufficiently. I think, veganism is the ultimate peace movement. So, if we want peace on Earth, we have to educate far more people to become vegan, and the only people who can do that are us vegans ourselves. And because there's been relatively so little of that education, I think that's a major reason why we're in the situation we're in.
As well as patriarchy and capitalism.
I have a piece of good news relating to our fellow animals in war. There were 100 Greek citizens in Dubai trying to get back because of the war, and they denied to getting regular flights. Of course, they didn't want to leave their animal companions behind. So finally, after all these days, there was a special flight organized, and from what I read, they landed an hour ago. 100 humans with 45 non-humans in the cabin. So at least they are back and they are safe. But
doesn't sound enough of our fellow animals, does it?
No, definitely
no. These were the people that didn't want to leave them behind, because from what I've read, there've been many animal companions left behind, and one organization stated that there were many questions about euthanasia in the area. So apparently people would think of euthanizing, quotation marks of course, because this is not euthanasia, it's murder, their animal companions in order for themselves to leave the country.
And it's funny because sorry, Roger, we keep having both overexcited.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying we think often about the direct violence and maybe death or physical harm and injuries, but there's so many other ways that fellow animals are suffering because of war, and one which probably isn't never mentioned really is psychological trauma. The psychological trauma that they must go through to live through this experience and not even know what's going on. And you've got, we've mentioned already, the habitat destruction, the collapse of the systems that they rely on for survival, and you've also got, obviously, like Nell was just alluding to there, the abandonment. Fellow animals are abandoned and left to maybe starve to death, or they're going to be neglected. Then also something else that I came across when I was looking into this was so-called farmed animals are often used for economic sabotage, because the opposition will target them in order to weaken the enemy's food supply. And then obviously they're also going to struggle with lack of care and potentially disease as well. And then also things like fellow animals who are captive, for example, in so-called zoos, prisons, they're going to be left. They're often left in their cages when the staff are made to evacuate, and then and if there are food shortages, those fed animals are often killed and eaten. So there's so many other things that are going on during war that you wouldn't even think about. You know, all this, the kind of ripple effects.
Well, we talk about fireworks, right? But can you imagine? You know, the
sound.
These ballistic missiles. I mean, you can just tell from the videos that we're talking about massive explosions. I saw some footage of some explosions in the far distance, and there was like a horse farm in the foreground, and of course the horses were kind of pulling and you know, trying to get loose, and they were kind of spinning around in circles and this kind of stuff, and they were really kind of distressed. And when you think that we always talk about some of our fellow animals will die of a heart attack because of fireworks, what the hell does, you know, do missiles do?
And there's people that oppose fireworks but will support warfare, which is like, you know, a million times worse in terms of the harm that it does to our fellow animals. But I think there's an interesting question actually about regarding Hitler, and I think this is an important one to address.
This one?
Yes, this one.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, are we fundamentally, and this goes beyond just talking about warfare, are we entitled to exploit and oppress our fellow animals for human benefit? Are we entitled to do that? Now, if we look, say, for instance, at animal experimentation, we would say that we're not, that it doesn't matter how many humans it might be cured or might be saved by experimenting on our fellow animals. Those experiments are still not morally justifiable. And I think we can apply the same principle to warfare. Yes, okay, Hitler, I mean, horrendous, you know, it's horrendous what the Nazis did. But once again, you're talking about, if you're going to use, say, high explosives against, you know, the Hitler regime, and it's inevitable that large numbers of our fellow animals are going to perish because of that. Isn't that the same principle? Aren't we saying that we're entitled to cause other animals to suffer and die for human benefit, and therefore shouldn't we apply the same principle and say that no matter what the human benefit, we're not entitled to do that?
Even if it means that you're denying yourself the right to self-defense.
Yeah, but you could say the same. You could say the same, couldn't you, about animal experiments, that what we're doing is defending ourselves against disease.
Yeah, well, they do say that, don't they?
Yeah, by experimenting on our fellow animals. And our moral position would be, no, that's not justifiable. It's not justifiable to do that. You know, it's not justifiable to. I mean, the Nazis themselves, they did that, didn't they? They experimented on Jewish people and other people, well, other humans they considered it inferior to the Aryan race, in order to provide benefit for the Aryan race. But even if there was benefit to the Aryan race from those experiments, they would still not be morally justifiable. You see, because it's a situation of supremacism, isn't it? And this is the same thing. This is the same thing. That even if me, you know, sending a high explosive over to kill other people, to kill, you know, people that I might consider humans, that I might consider to be evil, would benefit me or benefit people that I care about, still not justifiable, because our fellow animals would be killed and, you know, would be made to suffer because of that.
There's a real massive question about humanity built into this. For example, Debbie's writing, go to war against Hitler. Well, as you said, Ronnie, it was Hitler's regime. And so why do people follow people like that into war is a massive problem from a vegan point of view. You know, why does one, mean, we've got it at the moment with Trump, right? Why do the US Army follow the orders of somebody who's clearly got problems on multiple levels? Not to mention that, you know, his personality should, you know, debar him from the position he's in. And yet you've got an entire country that would seem to kind of hang on every word. You know, every press conference is full. I mean, if you're a journalist, I wouldn't even turn up, because you know he's going to lie, right? The same must have been about Hitler.
Yeah. He was voted in by a very large, number of people in the USA. Donald Trump. I think about 30% of people eligible to vote in the USA voted for Trump. That's a hell of a lot of people, and so it once again comes back to education. It's because, you know, people need to be educated to see things differently, to have a different mindset. To some lovely noises coming from your.
I know. This fantails decided.
Wendy. And that's what we've got to do, because these people. Trump didn't come down from the sky. He didn't parachute out of a spacecraft. You know, neither did Sama. Neither did all the terrible politicians we've had for, you know, from forever. Did they? They're all voted in by members of the public. So unless you change a substantial, you know, the mindset, substantial number of people, of ordinary people, that's going to carry on. And so education is vital. And obviously, if you want to get right down to basics, vegan education.
Would going back to Deb's question, which is very difficult from a vegan point of view, because there was at least three prominent conscientious objectors within the pioneers of the vegan social movement. So they wouldn't kill, but they would defend, and they would do things like, you know, the famous thing about, I won't fight humans, but I'll fight fires. Okay. But,
yeah,
you know, the problem with that is it's just leaving the field open to somebody like Trump and Hitler. Because if you won't fight them in the way they're fighting you, they're going to win.
The problem is that I think the difficulty is how you fight them, because if you're going into a duel with someone, you wouldn't choose a weapon that they were particularly.
That's what I'm getting at. But they're not going to come at you with a sword nowadays.
Well, they're still going to come at you with a form of violence, aren't they? Even if it's not a sword. You know, in terms of people they consider to be their enemies.
And so, what then, from a vegan point of view? Just
well, I think all we can do is create a situation where these things don't happen again in future. Because, I mean, what do we do? You know, in practical terms, you know, what do we do? What can we do about Trump, like right now? I think basically the best we can hope for is that the next election in the UK, in the US, although we might have similar to Trump over here unless we make great efforts to stop reform. But in the USA, yeah, I think really what I hope is he'll be voted out, or the Republicans will be voted out of power at the next US election, and that's kind of the reality what we've got to hope for.
Yeah, if he hasn't killed everybody that would naturally vote him out, this is the real problem. But and I mean, I got a final question for you, Ronnie, which is, your group and yourself, you're big on writing to the newspapers. Have you written to them about the war thing, and are they receptive to that kind of letter?
I've written letters in the past to newspapers regarding war and the effect of war on our fellow animals. Yes, although we usually what I tend to do, and what the other people who write letters from our group tend to do, is respond to something that's in the newspaper, and then there's much more chance of you getting the letter published. And so far, because it's just like a local newspaper, there hasn't really been anything in it about the war. So therefore, we haven't we haven't written that sort of letter this time, although we have in the past.
No, it seems to me that it's got a real potential for getting the people reading that to think, "Oh, blimey, I didn't think about that before." You know, it's almost like if there was a population of free living children somewhere, and people going, "Well, what about them?"
But I mean,
the luxury of going to war.
People already know that innocent civilians are being killed. They already know that, you know, a girls' school was obliterated with huge loss of life, don't they? In Iran, for instance, just the hospitals are being bombed, aren't they? You know, everyone knows that already. They know that. And that should be sufficient reason for them to be opposed to war, shouldn't it? Without even bringing in our fellow animals.
Do you know what it seems as well? Unless it's on your doorstep, people are so able to just push it away very easily and to not really grapple with the reality of what it actually is. And I suppose that was a difference when we were actually involved in, like, you know, in the Second World War, and we were actually being bombed, and we were, you know, very much in the mix of it. It's not, obviously you can't distance yourself, but at the moment it's very easy for us to sit in a privileged situation and distance so much from it.
I feel that very point about what Nella goes through. We don't have those fires and having to get out there in the, you know, into the fields and the smoke and, you know, the health problems of all that. We've never done it, us three. Only Nella has. And again, it's kind of, well, it's not happening to me, so therefore, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a thing that we can do very well.
That vegans, most vegans, can very easily, you know, feel compassion about a situation that they haven't experienced. For example, in relation to war, I was talking with some non-vegans about war the other day, and they never thought in the conversation, they were very sad about the war happening and the loss of life and the destruction of the ecosystems, but they didn't think about individual animals. And I said, imagine babies crying and cats running to rescue themselves and dogs barking and not know where to go and birds dying in the air. And they said, oh, you're right. But they hadn't thought about that before that. But every vegan I've talked to, they were, you know, it was very easy for them to get in the shoes of the people getting killed, of the animals running to save their lives. I think that within the vegan community there is a heightened sense of compassion about every life that is on the line and at risk. And I think that vegan education is now maybe more important than ever, because vegans by default must be against imperialism, against colonialism, against any kind of violence and violation of the other's right. So I think it's more relevant than ever.
No, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely agree. And I just think it's a shame that, in a sense, our movement's, I think, gone down the wrong road, or hasn't concentrated enough on the right road, which is vegan education. And so, you know, this situation has kind of been allowed to develop because we haven't focused enough on that. And you know, I myself am, you know, I'm the same. You know, I spent a long time, you know, not being involved in vegan outreach. And I think that's, you know, our movement's very much gone down the road of protest, of trying to put pressure on the authorities to change things when we're up against a speciesist system who are only going to make very, very small concessions without and what we should be trying to do is to change the culture of our society through vegan education. And we've really, all vegans have really got to try to get on board with that. Because unless we do that,
problem, Ronnie. I mean, like, the kind of connections that Nella was talking about. We know that there's a substantial number of vegans who would say that those such connections are either not there or they're not important. It's got nothing to do with us, and it's just a distraction from where we want to go in the first place. Because from my point of view, the distressing part of the last few years is the threads of right-wing thought that have come into the movement, which is just a reflection, I know, of the fact that, you know, right-wing thought in general is pretty strong right now. And so obviously, I imagine all movements are being affected by it, not just ours, but ours certainly has. And you can see it.
That's right, but that's where in-reach is really important, to educate people who consider themselves to be vegan, that other views they have are not consistent with veganism. That's what we need to do. That doesn't mean that, and that isn't a distraction from them campaigning for our fellow animals, because what we're talking about is an attitude that those people have, isn't it? You need them to change their attitude. You don't want to stop them, you know, campaigning for our fellow animals. We want to change the attitude they have towards other humans, don't we?
We do. Right, folks, we're coming up to 90 minutes, so that's over our time. So do we wrap up now, or what we're going to do?
I will have to, because I've got I'm being called to my duties.
Like something.
Among other duties.
Again,
yes, and tail.
So
she comes and she's like, "Well, I'm Dylan ringing the bell in a minute. It's Butler Bell, as I call it."
You're just the slave.
He has actually. No, honestly, Ronnie, I am. Dylan literally has got a bell, and he does. He does ring it. And if you don't get to him straight away, he gets more and more frantic at the bell, and like he turns around and looks as like, "Is no one hearing this?" So funny.
It'll start to jump up and down. Right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ronnie, and thank you, Deb.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, thanks to Ronnie and Deb, and thank you for everybody who tuned in to the Fantail show
on a Wednesday.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, that's it. That's another.
I heard it.
Is that the bell?
That's Brian. That's Brian's alarm. Brian's probably sitting up there, and I go, "Get up here now."
I want to see a video of a dog dinging a bell.
Oh, I'll try and get him. I'll try.
Oh yes, please.
It's a long bell, and he just whacks it, and yeah, I'll try and get him ringing the bell.
And until that joyous moment, folks, we shall say goodbye. So
yeah, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
Take care.
We'll
Bye, everyone.
see you
Take
again.
care.
Bye, everyone.